Hi, I'm Lana,
And I'm Sara.
and this is Real Estate Tips with SNL. So, first and foremost, Sara, welcome.
Thank you,
She's
Lana.
the guest host today.
It's really great to be back with you.
Oh, good. And just tell us quickly what you do and the quick little how you and I know each other. Just give everybody.
Lana and I have been agents in central Massachusetts for a very long time together, and I have so much respect for her, and I know she feels the same about me.
I do.
Which is amazing. And I think it's great that we both work for different brokerages, but we like to collaborate, and we love to call each other with questions when we have them. I'm also a real estate coach for Ferry International, and I've been selling real estate primarily in the North Quabbin area for 24 years.
Lifesaver for me all the time. Resource. I love it.
But I feel the same about you, friend. So
there we go.
Let's keep making it happen.
So let's introduce Faith. So we have Faith Salter, who, and this is a challenge, it's a tongue twister for me, North County Land Trust.
That's it. You got it.
And you became the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do want you to give me a little bio, but was the most interesting thing that I read about you, and you don't know much about me yet, that you actually were involved with the Appalachian Club.
Yeah, the Appalachian Mountain Club.
And that is amazing for like 20 years.
Yeah, for over 20 years, I worked there. I started there to work with a small group of volunteers who were focused on just conservation. And then over time, I just got to work with more and more and more of those volunteers. There's over 2,000 of them who's they volunteer to lead trips and offer educational experiences for folks to get outdoors close to where they live. Because the Appalachian Mountain Club's mission is to get people outside so they fall in love with the outdoors, and then we'll feel motivated to take action to protect the outdoors.
And I get that I became a member when I did about a 7-day trek once. But I always was wondering what the club, because they always send this little card and they're like, become the club. And I never knew what that was. I was like, I don't know, people that, want to do something. I didn't even know what that was, but it's more about what? Maintaining? Organizing hikes?
The Appalachian Mountain Club, and it sounds like you were also thinking about the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Okay. And these two organizations do get mixed up a lot.
Got it.
So the Appalachian Trail Conservancy is the nonprofit organization that has stewardship for the Appalachian Trail, which is a 2,000-mile plus trail that goes from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Katahdin in Maine. Yep. And those of you thru hikers who are out there right now, good luck. Because they're out there on the trail right now. And that is a really interesting organization because they have to work with different clubs all the way from Georgia to Maine to take care of the trail and the shelters and everything like that on the trail and make sure that it doesn't get encroached on. And over its history have tried to move it from roads and things like that onto protected land so that the experience is as natural as possible. The Appalachian Mountain Club is a regional organization from Maine to Virginia that really started with folks who cared about the White Mountains, particularly at the end of the 19th century when there was a lot of deforestation happening up there and they wanted to hike, but there were fires and the trees were being cut down. And so they came together to kind of just celebrate recreation and mountaineering and the protection of land. That's where it started.
Got it.
And so today the organization has the folks I worked with the most, as I said, were volunteer leaders, all trained in outdoor skills and everything like that. They offer, from paddling to mountaineering and just even local walks and trail running and things. Those are the folks I worked with, but the organization also has lodging in the White Mountains and in New York and in Western Mass. And they have a lot of really big conservation projects that they work on in Pennsylvania. And the one that folks around here might know about, aside from the work in the White Mountains, is the Bay Circuit Trail, which is a 220-mile trail between 128 and 495. And also the Maine Woods, where the AMC has protected over 100,000 acres. And there's places to stay up there as well, some of which is like really like I would call it luxury accommodation, with all the meals and the sauna and everything like that. And there's rustic campsites as well. So that's a really cool property.
It's amazing what we have for recreation.
Oh my gosh.
Just in our backyard.
Oh, people underestimate that, especially the further I think into Western Mass you get, just the amount of green space. And I think when it comes to our jobs, that's one of the focal points that I always bring to the table is what you get out here for a lifestyle with the green space that we have and the fact that you can just walk out your door and find these trails almost around every corner is amazing.
Yeah.
Our family just relocated to Westminster a week and a half ago, and we went out on our first hikes there this weekend, and we went to Crocker Pond, and we just found some really, really great places that we didn't really know were there.
It's amazing. I mean, when I drive around, I'm always looking for, like, there's a trailhead there. Where does that go? But I'm going to bring back to North County Land Trust.
County Land Trust, my new adventure.
I honestly got to share. I know Sara knows more about this trust organization than I do. Of course, I've heard of it, but give me a quick little synopsis.
Sure.
And then the greatest piece that I learned was that you have events and you do events. And so anyway, share what that's all about.
Sure. So North County Land Trust is focused, our service area is from like Air out to Winchendon and down to Hubbardston and Sterling. Right. Okay. So it's kind of like northern Worcester County. Mm-hmm. Air is in Middlesex County, but it's right. Part of our service area. And what the land trust does is we work with landowners, so private landowners or maybe even sometimes municipalities, to help them protect land in a way that meets what they want to do with it. Right. And so there's a lot of different ways to protect your land if you're a landowner in perpetuity. And that's the kind of land protection that a land trust does. Some of the land that we are stewards for is open to the public. We've got 15 properties that are open to the public. So that might be like some of the signage that you've seen. So Crocker Conservation Area in Fitchburg is one of the properties that we take care of.
It's owned by an individual solely, and you take care of it? Or?
We own some of the properties in fee. So we own the land and we take care of the land and we manage the trails on those properties.
Got it.
And then some of the properties that we have stewardship responsibility for would be held in conservation restriction. So a private landowner who has a large parcel might want to preserve the character of that parcel, and they might want to give away or sell the development rights to a land trust. So North County Land Trust would hold those rights and be responsible for making sure that that land is maintained in the way that the landowner wants in perpetuity. And so what that means is every year we might visit that land. We do visit that landowner's property to check and make sure the boundaries are still where they should be and that the uses are still as described in the original conservation restriction. And it's necessary because, some of your listeners might be interested in thinking about this. When you own your own property, especially if you abut conservation land, which is always like people like to abut conservation land, you have to know where your boundary is because there are certain uses that may not be allowed on that conservation land that you might not realize, particularly if there's a wetland there.
So wait a minute. This is strange. So conservation land is owned by the trust.
We own land, for conservation.
Both. I think they do both.
Meaning?
That they own some parcels of land they might buy outright from the property owners.
Yeah.
But some they might just take the development rights, which means the homeowner will retain the 20 acres.
Oh.
But the conservation restriction might be on 15 of them, and it might allow for public use. Correct?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So with that, you were just bringing up the boundary line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if somebody, now I know for me, when people are saying I want, 5 acres and I can only find them a half an acre, but guess what? You abut conservation. So you get to use the land. You're saying a little bit of restriction on like maybe how close?
Well, so if
what they can do on their land?
Well, I mean, it's like any other kind of expectations around what you do on your land, right? And so some folks, I mean, I know where the boundaries are of my property because I have neighbors on both sides and it's quite clear. But when you have maybe a larger parcel and it sort of feeds into conservation land, you might not know where that boundary is. And so when you're going to build a shed or cut down trees, you want to make sure that you're doing that on your property.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even bring in some livestock animals.
Right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to have grazing animals and be like, oh, that conservation land is there. I'm just going to let them go over there.
Exactly.
That might not be an approved use.
And anytime you see the word conservation, that means the public has the right to use it. No?
I think that you'll find that the publicly accessible conservation lands are posted as such, right?
Okay.
So like there's usually a sign, a place to park. Not always. No. I sometimes find the parking isn't sufficient in some of the conservation areas. Sure. Whereas folks who have a conservation restriction on their land and don't want public access, sometimes they'll post it, no trespassing. Some of them allow hunting on their land.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But it may or may not be accessible to the public. But it is, generally speaking, if you're like pulling up and there's kiosk and there's trails, Yeah.
Is there a fee ever for anyone to ever use any of the?
Not for North County Land Trust properties. We don't charge fees to go on our properties. Some of the land trusts in Massachusetts, some of the organizations that manage land in Massachusetts do charge admission fees. A good example would be the trustees of reservations in the Crane Estate or Crane's Beach, right? You do pay admission to go there.
Got it.
Some of those properties, Mass Audubon has some entry fees. And if you're a member of those organizations, then you don't pay the fee when you go in. It's kind of nice that you can decide how you want to do that. You can be a member and support the organization over a year. Or you can be like, I'm going to Crane's Beach 3 times and I'm just going to pay the admission. Yeah. But our properties are all open to the public for free.
Okay, so I have a question. For North County Land Trust, what are the most desirable type of properties that you would like to acquire over the next 24 months?
That's a great question. And we are sort of in the middle of our strategic plan right now. And of course, we want to be responsive to all inquiries for folks who want to protect their land and things like that. But we are particularly interested in land that expands some existing contiguous forest. So if there's property that abuts an existing area that is protected, to just make that habitat more whole. And sometimes you look at the jigsaw puzzle of land ownership in any town, and there might be like a puzzle piece that's sort of like it's like a little donut hole, you know? So to be able to protect that and know that that's sort of an area that can have that contiguous forest, because that lends itself to healthier habitat and the forest's capacity to have more climate resiliency. So that's a big priority. And where we can connect areas as well. So there's one area sort of like, this is a wonderful piece and there's a donut hole, or there's a piece over there we can expand, but there might be a piece here and a piece here. And we know that folks love to go on longer walks.
Yes.
So to be able to have a corridor that protects it, particularly if it's along a river. So we talk a lot to the Nashua River Watershed Association, love to partner with them to protect this watershed, because our land trust's service area overlays the Nashua River Watershed very closely, right? And so we love to partner with them because they, of course, have similar goals around protecting the greenway to protect the river.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's such a storied river in our communities that, you know, we want to be a part of them accomplishing that as well.
Do you feel that more often than not, you're going to the landowners and talking to them, or are they primarily coming to the land trust and saying, we want to put this in stewardship?
I think it's more the latter. Okay. But I do think that, and I'm pretty new in this job, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would say that where there might be a critical piece, then there would be probably an opportunity to think about letting the landowner know. Okay. Letting them know that they may not know that their property is like the last section of a potential trail that might make it possible for someone to walk from Fitchburg up to New Hampshire. You know, they may not know that. Maybe that would be of interest to them, maybe not, you know, but we sort of feel like the more we can be present in the community and talk to landowners and support them in thinking about their land and what they want to do in the long term. Some of the landowners I've talked to recently, as I've gotten to know folks involved in land trust, have talked about what they want to do with their land for the future, for their children, how they can plan for that. Some of them have said they want to make those plans while they can still really think about it, and not find themselves in a situation where, you know, it's too late for them to do something. So we want to invite landowners to feel comfortable talking to us and make it clear that, like, there are so many different goals and priorities that landowners have. We want to try to work with them, and we might be the right organization to help them, and we might not. And if we're not the right organization, we try to help them find them.
Do you, when you were saying the owners, you sometimes buy or acquire? I know this is an odd question, but do you buy it at face value? Usually you're buying it less. Is it a tax break? Like, what is this? What does this mean to an owner?
Yes, to all of that, right? So we have some owners who want to contribute their land, and they just want to donate it and see it protected. Sure. And of course, it's important to know that doesn't, it's not like you can say, here's my land and like hand it over, right? Because there has to be all of these due diligence steps that do cost money and things like that. So, and there has to be consideration like, can we take care of this land? Is this land that is within our service area that we have the capacity to care for in the way that the landowner wants us to, right? And then there certainly is space for landowners who certainly want to sell their land. In those instances, what we will do is try to figure out who can we work with to help bring that funding into the situation so that landowner does get some value for their land. And you know, I think that landowners definitely want to get market value for their land. It's great if they can reduce that, but where we can help them, we will. And sometimes if the price is too high, we can't. But there is and have been many programs, you know, federally funded programs and state programs, and sometimes there's private money where there is a particular conservation value that's being addressed. And so it might be an historic value, it might be a particular recreational resource. An example coming to my mind is for climbers. You know, folks who like to go climbing, that kind of recreational resource is really hard to manufacture. And so when a really good cliff, and I'm not a climber, full disclosure, I'm not a climber. I just worked with them at the AMC to on some of these kinds of things. And so when a really good cliff is becoming available, like the landowner who owns property that has a really great rock face, particularly in New England where there's just, you know, it's just not as many. Yeah. Then there are private organizations that try to work, like that's a recreational resource that Massachusetts wants to protect, that usually local towns want, because having a resource like that's good for the local economy, and the climbers want it. And so a combination of things can come together to try to secure that kind of recreational resource. And that can be true for climbing and any other number of.
When you acquire, buy, or whatnot the land, then is it your organization that goes in and creates the trail?
If we acquire land that is going to be open to the public, then we'll go. Our director of stewardship is very experienced, and she'll go and walk the land. And trying to wayfind on property is really neat because you have to get familiar with the whole property and be like, what do people want to walk around? Nobody kind of want to walk straight in and straight out, right?
Like
and
meander.
You want the trail to not go straight up the hill, but to, as you say, meander around and hopefully take in some of the natural features. You know, the Crocker Conservation Land has this beautiful stone wall that you can walk by, and then you go into this laurel forest. It's really nice. And you have to avoid things, right? You can't, if you're going to run a trail right through an area that's very muddy, you're going to have to build structures and things like that. So on the other hand, some of the most magical things you can do on a trail or on a boardwalk in a wetland, right? Like that's when you can do that kind of thing and ever give people a chance to be face to face with turtles and the birds, like the red-winged blackbirds that are out there and the herons. Amazing. That is a real treat too. So trail building is this really neat area of sort of engineering that that organizations like ours have to know something about, or know people who know something about it, so that we can try to make that experience positive.
Have you found that it's gotten more difficult in Massachusetts to build boardwalk trails in the last 5 to 10 years?
You know, I can't answer that question. I'm not sure. Are you thinking because of wetlands protections and things like that, or?
Yeah, and just making it accessible to all people. I know there's a beautiful area in the community I work in Athol that I would love to see a boardwalk connect the downtown area to Cass Meadow Farm. And one of the things that has gotten in the way of that is the incline, and to be able to make it passable by a wheelchair motorized vehicle. And so I was always been curious how that might prohibit, you know, development of boardwalks and things like that.
I mean, I think there's certainly a movement for all persons trails, and their construction, which can sometimes be really challenging. There's an all persons trail up at Cardigan Lodge in New Hampshire that AMC built in the last year or so, and they want to make it a loop, but they're struggling with, just like you're saying, there's an incline on the way back that's challenging. So, I think that. That and the climate resiliency considerations, because in the few years back, it's been a little while, there were a series of big storms that wiped out a lot of bridges. So whether you're a private land trust or a municipality or the Forest Service, when you look at replacing that bridge, the question you're asking yourself is, do we have to replace that bridge?
Yes.
And if we do, is it a bridge that can withstand a 100-year storm?
Yeah, how do we make it
because we're having
sustainable?
more of those. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. And that's it's a tough question because you absolutely want folks to be able to get out there and do things. One of the things that North County Land Trust has that I think is kind of neat is this grit chair program where we have 2 grit chairs, and they're like, they're not motorized, but they're kind of like off-road wheelchairs.
Oh, cool.
So a person who maybe has struggles walking on the trails and doesn't necessarily want to go on like a paved rail trail, they want to get into a rougher
And feel
trail
nature.
environment, can borrow these grit chairs. And you can
awesome.
you can do it right at the Doyle Center, which is where our office is, or you can take the wheelchair off and go where you want to go. So that's a neat program I wanted to make sure I mentioned. Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
Talk about some of the events that you have
Oh,
lined
yeah.
up, and what are the events that you normally look out for throughout the year?
Yeah, so we really want to get people out onto the properties. So most of our events are on the land that we own, and we try to have some kind of an educational and connection element. And so this year, so I've been here 6 months. We do have a weekly Wednesday walk at Crocker. Which is you can sign up for, and that goes with one of our board members, and she has just been walking those trails for years and years and years. And I went with her the other day and saw parts of that property I had never seen before, which was beautiful. And then I have some folks who volunteer to do like bird watching events with us. We've had several of those. One of our bird watching events is an owl prowl, so that happens at night, and you go out.
Once.
Did you?
It was so cool.
Did you hear some owls?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was at the Doyle.
Oh yeah.
It was at night.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And there was an owl there.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And the person who we have facilitate, she is so good at her owl calls. Her name is Laurie Naring, and she's so good at them that if you have your Merlin app open, it thinks she's an owl, which I think is like the best test ever.
That's pretty amazing.
And I do a monthly walk with me because I'm just trying to get to know the properties, but also just meet people and try to understand what they would love to see us do and what they're interested in with the land trust. So I did one earlier this month at Crocker, which was like nature observation. And my one in May, which is not this weekend, it's next weekend, is spring flowers. We're going to look for spring flowers. You know, you have to kind of hunt for spring flowers, but when you find them, it's like...
Yeah,
I know.
So I pre-walked that trail this weekend and I found Trillium. So I'm very excited. So hopefully they'll still be there when we go. And then I'm really excited that we have a big event coming up in June, which is our movie night. It will be at Applewild School, and it is on June the 20th. We are showing the film. It's Jane Goodall's Reasons for Hope. And this was a film that was at the Museum of Science last year. And I went to see it with a group of friends who we were thinking a lot about climate change and everything. And it was just what we needed because what Jane Goodall does is she just travels the world and collects stories of communities who care about their community and their quality of life. And they come together and make a change, you know, whether they're doing a cleanup or they're protecting habitat or whatever it might be. So it's just a series of stories of regular people who work together and with their towns and with the local partners, whether it's businesses or universities, and make a change, you know, and then it just feels good to do that. And I feel like that's something that all of us can do in North Central. I feel like that's what we want to do at our land trust. We want folks to feel like being a part of the land trust is part of protecting land in North Central. And, you know, we've talked a lot about the White Mountains and Cardigan and all that kind of thing, but you really can stay here.
Oh, yeah.
And have wonderful, beautiful outdoor experiences and see so much wildlife. Like you were talking about how the nature here is so apparent. And a part of that is the wildlife. And yesterday I was driving on 2A, an air, and a bobcat ran across the road right in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I better take my dog in.
And when the people that live here have buy-in to the beautiful landscape and nature that we have, the more they respect it.
Yes.
And I think that's it. And
100%.
so I think getting into the school, starting from a young age, getting them out there, having them not be afraid is so important, because that's going to reduce contamination, trash, you know, have them want to preserve the beautiful areas that we have. Yeah. We were really, really blessed. Our youngest daughter got to go to a public school in New Salem, Massachusetts, where Lana and I've recently been talking about. And in my opinion, it's one of the most beautiful public schools that are out there, because from 6th grade to preschool, the kids are allowed to go outside. They're allowed to play in the woods. They have animals on site in the school.
Wow.
And it's just a really nurturing setting.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can get children to play in the woods, the more they're going to love it.
Yeah.
Because we have that here.
I notice homeowners too. We used to talk about we want a big backyard.
Yeah.
But I've been the last couple of months looking at property. They don't have much of a yard, but it might be a drop off, but it's all woods.
Yeah.
And the thing that they're all saying is, "Oh, no, I love this property." I'm like, "Well, it's not the yard that you wanted, right?" But it's not what they want. They want the kids because they're going to go get creative and go out there. They're going to start picking up things. They're going to learn stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to touch things. They're going to smell things. It's going to be really different. I remember being in Girl Scouts, and that was the only time where you picked up trash.
Yeah.
You maintained things. You did that. And that was a bummer because, I think that's what got me into not just camping, but hiking and playing in the woods.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that there's not other organizations or consistent organizations within the school.
Yeah, it's not just April.
Right.
For spring cleanup.
Exactly.
Let's just clean up our neighborhoods always.
Yeah, the Earth Day instead
Yes.
of like the sort of ethic of the earth and caring what your community's natural environment is like. Yeah, for sure.
Does North County Land Trust have any inkling in the future to help with historic properties in the region that you serve, similar to what the trustees of reservations or Mount Grace has done with some of the iconic buildings in the community?
Well, I mean, it isn't something that we have a lot of experience with, but like I said, when folks call us and they make an inquiry, if it's something we feel like we can be good at and take care of, then we'll have that conversation. And if it isn't, then we'll help them connect with folks who can. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot of times it comes down to capacity, and any organization needs to kind of make sure we focus on mission. I feel so fortunate that we are in the space in North County, where there's like a lot of organizations that do similar but not identical things, and so there's any kind of property might be best served by us or best served by another organization. And ultimately there's so much work to do in land preservation, historic preservation, that for us to just acknowledge that and work together and find the best partner for the landowner,
I love that.
That's the part that we really want to make sure.
On a personal note, what brought you to North County? Like what was the attraction to come here?
Well, I'd been at AMC for over 20 years. When I didn't grow up in this part of the state, I grew up on the South Shore. We moved here to be closer to my family, and never thought I'd be here for this long. Right? It's been 25 years.
It's always the case.
Right? Never
Always
thought we were
the
going to do
case.
this because we'd moved around a lot. And, but this change was just the right time for me. I'd been at AMC for a while, and it was just a good time for me to go. So I did. And then what I love about this role is it just brings together a lot of the things that I cared about professionally, working with people and connecting them to each other in nature, talking about land protection, which is something I love to do. Because even though my focus was volunteers, I did get to learn a lot from the policy team there. And I love to think about, how land gets protected, how trails get built, and it's local. And to me, you've both been talking about this, that sort of that value of being able to walk out your door and be in nature. And I want to be a part of that here in North Central. And I love so much that I've had time to really slow down a little bit and get to know these properties in North Central Mass. Because I was sort of zipping off to Maine or going, really focused on different areas. And now I get to focus. So, I love it. Yeah.
How do people reach out, and where do they need to go to look for trails or reach out to the land, the association or the trust or whatnot? How do they?
So we have a website, of course, North County Land Trust.
And I'll post that. So
.org. And then, calling or emailing us if you want to talk about land. We just answer the phone. We don't have people just pick up the phone and answer the phone.
That's unusual.
which is nice. So, and of course, coming out with us is a great way to
Where do you
connect.
post your events?
The events are on our website, and also you can follow us on Facebook, and we also post them there. And then as far as trails go, we certainly have all of our maps posted at our website, but as just kind of a person who likes to explore new places, I get a lot out of all trails. And North County, we're working to make sure all of our trails are in there. But for folks who are just trying to find something local, that's a great app to have on your phone. But yeah, it's always good to have a map and everything like that. So our website has all of those resources. And like I said, I'm trying to offer an event on our different properties coming
That's
out.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to go with somebody sometimes,
You see things differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, when the nature observation one, having all those extra eyes to see different things on the trail. And then you might have somebody with you who like, maybe you're really good at identifying the flowers, but this person, the bird flies over and they're like, ooh,
Yes.
I know what that was,
Yes. That's
so
really
everybody kind
fascinating.
of comes in and you make that space where folks realize that it's okay to geek out about fungus.
Yes.
They're like, not a marshmallow. I'm a mushroom identifier, not a marshmallow.
Yes, well, you never know what you see there, but 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And you can learn
100%.
so much from other folks and realize that like there's other people out there who do want to talk about habitat protection and land protection and things. So
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, it was my
Thank you.
pleasure. Thanks
This
for
was
having me.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So I hope that you learned something and you'll reach out and look on the website. But I wanted to thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Throw us some questions, something that of interest of you. We will be happy to bring on some further guests. But you can find me, Lana Kopslet, Coldwell Banker in Leominster. And Sara, where can they find you?
You can find me at the hometown team at Real Brokerage, servicing the North Quabbin region of Massachusetts.
Love it. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks
thank
very
you.
much.
This was so awesome.